Welcome to another episode of our NFL season preview. We've now made it through about half of the league now. I believe this is around the 12th team, so we're getting to the halfway point. We're now working with the worst teams as far as projections, working our way up to the best teams. If you hadn't seen any of the other episodes, what we do is we run through the previous season real quickly, run through their off-season additions, subtractions, what the team's strengths and weaknesses are, and what the projections look like this year, and what the players can improve, which players can improve the most on the team, and talk about what can be the most intriguing thing and the best and worst outcomes for all these teams. Um, if you are liking what you're seeing, please hit that like button, the comment button. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and if you feel like it, hit that subscribe button for sure. Um, we will get straight into it. I gotta add one more thing here. So today we're talking about the Chicago Bears. They didn't have the best offseason to begin with. They didn't have the best season last year. They were 6-11 last year. They did win two of their last three, give people a little bit of hope, but two of those three wins were against, those two wins were against the Seahawks and the Giants, two teams that were on the decline as well. So, not a great ending to the season, but hopefully they can improve this year and, build upon what they ended on last year. As far as coaching in the offseason, they finally let the GM and GM and the coach go. Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. They were 33 and 34 over 7 years. They had no playoff wins in two chances, so didn't get the job done in Chicago. Um, they ended up hiring Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, getting the D coordinator from the Colts, bringing in a defensive coach for this team to try to continue that defensive mindset for the Bears. They also brought in Luke Getsy, who was the passing coordinator and the quarterbacks coach from Green Bay. So an interdivisional coach they bring in. Hopefully he can bring in that magic he has with Aaron Rodgers and apply it to Justin Fields and improve this offense, who was mediocre at best last year. Getting to their additions. So first we'll run through the draft. Draft first. So with the draft, they didn't have a first round pick this year because they traded away last year to the Giants to move up and get Justin Fields in last year's draft. So they had no first round pick this year. So their first pick was in the second round, 39th overall, and they used it on Kyler Gordon, the cornerback out of Washington. They kind of went defense again this year with their draft picks, and a lot of people spoke negatively about that when you look at the offensive weapons that Justin Fields has or does not have. They took Kyler Gordon here, probably a solid pick, but problem is they still had John Mechie and George Pickens available at 39 that they could have selected to help out Justin Fields. They followed that up by taking Jaquan Brisker, who was a solid pick, possible. Many people had him as a first-round pick going into this season. He slips down to 48. He's the safety out of Penn State. He's probably going to be a day one starter. A solid pick here as well. So they got two day one starters in the second round on the defense. So, like I said, we'll see if that really affects the offense, being that they did not take any offensive players with those first two picks, but they did follow it up with their third round pick, Velus Jones. They have him as depth on this right here, but with this wide receiver group, he's definitely going to be competing for a starting job day one. He's some of the knocks on him is being that he's going to be 25 years old as a rookie. Not ideal. He will have an immediate impact, though, especially in this Luke Getsy offense. He's versatile, which is what Luke Getsy would like to have for his team. He's also probably going to be the kick returner for this team. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the day one kick returner. They have Khalil, the running back, being the kick returner on this depth chart, but I would assume that Velus Jones Jr. would be the kick returner for this team. Then on day 4, they tried to address the offensive line by taking a bunch of shots in the dark. They took 4 offensive linemen on day 3. So are any of them going to be starters day 1? Probably not, but they're hoping to hit on some of them, being that this offensive line was not great by any means last year. They had a lot of issues protecting Justin Fields. He was just under duress in the entire game, every game. Whenever he got on the field last year, him, Andy Dalton, it didn't matter who was in the quarterback position. They had no time to have any open players downfield. So now we'll get into the sorry about that. We'll get into their free agency additions. So with free agency, they've brought in a few players for sure. Um, their center this year is probably going to be Lucas Patrick, who they got from Green Bay. Comes over with Luke Getsy. He's versatile as well. He played 3 different positions while in Green Bay, but he's more likely going to be the starter at center. So a little familiarity with Luke Getsy can help out Justin Fields, especially, like I said, that offensive line was not great last year. They also brought in Nicholas Morrow, and I'll get into it as we go through it. But the theme of the Chicago Bears offseason was the fact that they got a lot of players on prove-it deals, on 1, maybe 2-year contracts. If they can come in and prove that they're good, they'll redo their contract, get a new contract. But this team is building for the future, so they didn't want to commit a ton of money to a lot of players who haven't proven themselves in the league or who are coming off injuries. So with that said, they bring in Nicholas Morrow from the Raiders. He was injured all of 2021, but in 2020 he had a career year. He had all career highs in tackles, 78 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 6 quarterback hits. All career highs for him. So they're hoping to hit on him at the linebacker position, bring him in, give him a solid role up against next to Roquan Smith, their franchise linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the league. They also bring in Byron Pringle. They have him in the slot here. Another short deal. They're kind of expecting him to be the wide receiver 2 maybe this year behind Darnell Mooney, which is a problem. I mean, Byron Pringle is not looked at around the league as a wide receiver 2. It's maybe like they have bridge quarterbacks, maybe a bridge wide receiver, so they can get Velus Jones in there and maybe get some more wide receiver help in the future. But we'll see what happens with Pringle. Maybe he has a bigger role here, being that he was in that KC offense behind Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I mean, was he even the wide receiver 3 in that group? I don't know. So he may come here and produce. That's what they're trying to hope for and bank on in the Chicago offense. They then bring in the fullback, Kari Blasingame. This is their first fullback in Chicago since 2018. So it'll be curious to see how they use him, especially in this Luke Getsy offense. It's going to be intriguing because the running back room is not bad at all. David Montgomery is solid for sure. The rookie from last year, he came in, stepped up whenever Montgomery was hurt. They then drafted Ebner in the 6th round this year. So, I mean, it's a solid room for sure. So we'll see what happens with that fullback position. They then go into the defense. Back to the defense, they brought in Justin Jones, who probably serves as the 3 tech here in this 4-3 defense. Yeah, in the 4-3, he'll be the 3 tech here. Solid pickup from the Chargers. They lost Khalil Mack. We'll talk about that in a second. But they're trying to rebuild this defense on short deals, see who they can hit on, and not spend a lot of money and keep themselves open for the future to bring in new talent for sure. They did another prove it deal. Is Tavon Young from Baltimore. He had a lot of injuries in his past. He's solid when he plays, but again, it's another 1-year deal. Can you come in and prove that you can stay healthy and contribute to this defense? I mean, he's definitely able to get playing time. I mean, they do have Jalen Johnson, a solid player, cornerback. They're going to have Kyler Gordon, another cornerback, the rookie, who's going to get playing time. So Tavon Young could be competing with Thomas Graham Jr. here for the starting position in the nickel. Bring him in. Hopefully they can hit on something with a lot of these offseason acquisitions, these 1-year contracts between Tavon Young, Justin Jones, Nicholas Morrow. If one of the 3 hit, that would be great for the Bears on the defensive side of the ball. So now we'll get into their losses. They didn't have many losses on a team that was 6-11 and regressing. So there's not much to speak about what they lost. They did lose. They traded away Khalil Mack. They traded him away for a 2nd rounder this year that they used on Jaquan Brisker. So, I mean, a solid pickup for them for sure. and then they get a 6th-rounder next year from the Chargers. A lot of this was due to them trying to just move off his contract. They do have a $24 million dead cap hit this year, but I mean, this team's not looking to make the playoffs this year. They're just looking to improve, so the dead cap's not really an issue for them this year. But they did get off the final 3 years of his contract, so looking good for in the future for them, being that they're in rebuild mode. They didn't want to be paying Khalil Mack that type of money. They also released Eddie Goldman, who was their nose tackle. Akeem Hicks is also out, but Eddie Goldman, they released him likely due to them switching to a 4-3 defense. Didn't necessarily need him as much as now in that 3-4 that they were in. So then they also released Tariq Cohen, who's had the history of injuries. He's finally coming back. Then pops his Achilles live on Instagram. So they released him. It's hard going to be. They don't want to play the waiting game for him. Unfortunate for Tariq Cohen, but they got to move forward with this running back room. And then they also released Danny Trevathan, who didn't come in and produce last year like they needed him to, a little bit on the older side. So they still have Roquan as their Mike linebacker, and then they bring in these 1-year contracts, trying to get some production out of Morrow at the other linebacker position. So like I said, not many losses on a team that wasn't that great to begin with. So now we'll get straight into their strengths. Not too many strengths on this team. They're looking to the future. They have youth. That's one strength. They're trying to build around this youth. Have a ton of draft picks that they brought in. So that's one small thing, They're trying to rebuild a horrible roster. So they're bringing in all the youth, trying to start from the bottom up. They are solid with the tight end position. They have Cole Kmet. He's a solid tight end. I mean, how much better can he be in an offense that's hopefully going to improve? If the offense around him improves, hopefully he can be better as well. Justin Fields, a potential strength. He could be a franchise quarterback. He just has no weapons right now, so it's hard to say what he can be when he's not in the ideal situation. They were 30th in pass yards per game last year, but I mean, that's not all on Justin Fields. The protection was horrible last year. The weapons were not great. Allen Robinson was there, but it kind of almost looked like he wasn't putting forth the effort that he needed to be putting forth. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to grade what Justin Fields was doing or not doing in that 2021 Bears offense. See if he can improve this year. Doesn't have a lot of help yet, but hopefully the offensive line can improve. We'll see. The running back room is above average for sure. They have David Montgomery, who could be a top 10 running back in the league for sure. The only problem is the offensive line was not great. I've spoke about them multiple times. They did improve. They brought in a lot of new faces. All these day 3 picks that they brought in. They're trying to get some new pieces in there, spice up the O-line room, improve on what was horrible last year. So it's going to be hard for them to repeat how bad they were last year, so anything's going to be an improvement. So hopefully the running back room can become a strength if this offensive line can become average. But that's to be determined because they were so bad last year. They still, even though as bad as they were 15th in rushing yards per game. So like I said, if this offensive line can be average, this running back room and this ground game with Justin Fields being able to scramble, I mean, if you told me at the end of the year they were top 10, it wouldn't be the biggest surprise for me. And then the linebacker position. They have Roquan Smith, one of the best linebackers in the league. And if I have to find a strength in this defense, it's the fact that they have one solid player at each level of the defense. They have Robert Quinn up front. They have Roquan at the linebacker position. And then they have Eddie Jackson in the secondary. So solid players at each position can hopefully level out that defense and keep them competitive, if not above average, throughout the year on the defensive side of the ball. Now we get into their weaknesses, which is what's going to hold them back this year. I do believe, as far as their weaknesses go, I mean, pick a spot. Wide receiver group. I'm not trying to knock Darnell Mooney, but him being your wide receiver one is probably not the best option. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I am wrong, but it's hard for me to believe that he can be a wide receiver one. He is only going into his 3rd year, so maybe he can prove everyone wrong, including myself. But him being your wide receiver one, you back that up with Byron Pringle and Equinemius St. Brown as your 2 and your 3, or even Velus Jones. It's not ideal for Justin Fields to be with this wide receiver group. They didn't really address the offense at all, or the skill positions, I should say. I mean, so we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a bunch of prove-it guys, honestly. They have Darnell Mooney, who's still up and coming, but Byron Pringle, prove-it guy. Equinemius St. Brown, prove-it guy. Dante Pettis, prove-it. Tajay Sharp. This is all guys who have had their chance in the league and who have not shown that they can be productive in the wide receiver position. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Luke Getsy can get something out of them that other players or other coaches have not been able to. Again, the O-line was a weakness for sure last year. Any improvement, if they can get to average, again, that would be a great improvement for them. They were next to last in sacks allowed last year. You just remember the Cleveland game for the Bears last year. Justin Fields gets his first start, I believe, against the Browns, and they just demolished him. He had no time. He had like less than 1 or 2 seconds on the majority of his dropbacks, and Jadeveon Clowney or Myles Garrett is in his face. He had no opportunity to succeed in that game or any time during the season due to the offensive line's lack of protection. So we'll see what they can do there. Their defense could be better. Not saying that it's bad, but it could be better. Could be a potential weakness that you're counting on 2 rookies to be day one starters to contribute and to be solid. Not to say that they can't, but I mean, it's not ideal to be banking on a starting safety and a starting cornerback to carry the back end of your defense. So we'll see what happens with that. They were 21st in scoring defense last year, giving up just under 24 points a game, but their strength was they were 5th in offensive pass yard. They were 5th in yards given up. They just gave up points. They were 2nd. Their strength was the pass game. They were 2nd in pass yards allowed at 191 per game. So they look to build upon that with these day one starters, with these rookie starters. But, I mean, it's hard to say, oh, yeah, they're going to be great. We're going to depend on them to come in and contribute day one throughout the whole season. Maybe they can, but it's not something that's ideal, especially for this defense. And then you look back at the offense. They were 27th in points per game last year. They had no weapons, no offensive line. David Montgomery was hurt. So hopefully with Montgomery being back, it can help Justin Fields. Cole Kmet can improve. Darnell Mooney can take that next step. But as of right now, the offense as a whole is a weakness for this team. Being that last year, their problem, they were minus 14 with a turnover ratio last year. They just gave away the ball and didn't create turnovers as they should. So as far as their outlook on both sides of the ball, I mean, the offense is probably what's going to hold this team back this year. I spoke about the many weaknesses that this offense has and what they can do to improve or hopefully improve, but the defense should be average, if not better. The defense will keep them in games, but the offense is going to have to catch up to the defense in order for this team to take that next step to get close to a 500 record this year. So we'll get into their projected wins and predictions. Vegas has them at 6.5 wins this year. So, not the best. They were 6-11 last year, so about the same as last year. So we'll go week by week and discuss quickly what I expect from that week's matchup. So week 1, they play the Niners. This team is too good for the Bears to have a chance. Doesn't matter who's at quarterback for the Niners. They're not getting the win there. Then they play Sunday Night Football against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is not going to lose a divisional matchup against the Bears in week 2 in Green Bay. We don't need to discuss that in further detail. I mean, Green Bay is going to have a top 3 defense. Justin Fields, good luck. Week 3, they do play the Texans. Justin Fields may have no weapons, but he can score 14 himself, and that may be enough against this Texans team, who is in more of a rebuild than what the Bears are. So they get their first win there. They then follow that up, and they go to New York. I mean, this can be a close game, but I do still feel that the Giants are better. Justin Fields, he can't produce in this offense unless these offensive linemen come in and protect him unexpectedly better than what they did last year. They then go to the Vikings. The Vikings are playing for a wild card spot this year. They're an improved team, I do believe. So another loss, unfortunately. So they're 1-4 going into week 6. But the good thing about week 6 is that they play Carson Wentz, and it's a primetime game on Thursday Night Football. So you put Carson Wentz in primetime, I'm taking whoever he's playing against. Justin Fields gets the win against this team that the defense regressed last year. I feel like Justin Fields can expose them, especially in the run game, and even in the secondary. This would be the great game for the wide receivers to break out because the secondary of the Commanders is not the best at all. This is the great. This is the best opportunity for this passing game to get going, and Justin Fields gets a win here. Week 7 they play, so they have a Thursday night game and they follow it up with a Monday Night Football, so they have an extended time to prepare for the Patriots. And this may be their only shot at a winning streak this year, and I think they get it. The Pats offense versus the Bears defense, I honestly choose the Bears defense. Mac Jones doesn't even have an offensive coordinator, and even if he does, who's it going to be? Bill Belichick, who has not called offensive plays for a while now. Matt Patricia, horrible coach in Detroit. Joe Judge, horrible coach in New York. So give me the Bears defense over the Patriots offense. They then follow it up by playing the Cowboys in Dallas. The Cowboys regressed this year, but I don't think it's to the point where the Bears can get the win. So we're looking at 3-5 going into Week 9. So not horrible. They were 6-11 last year, projected 6.5 wins this year. Week 9 they play the Dolphins. Tua's the X factor on this team, but I still, even if he's bad, I don't think that they can beat the Bears. I don't think the Bears can beat them. So another loss going into Week 10. They do play the Lions in Week 10. The Lions are everyone's team to greatly improve this year. While I do agree with that, they're still going to have some shortcomings in every week. You can't predict them to just win every game against the teams that have less talent. With that said, the Bears are going to get some wins that people aren't expecting them to get. Everyone expects this team, including myself, that the offense is not going to be great, but sometimes I do believe that they're going to step up and show that they can produce for the future. And this will be one of those weeks where they get the interdivisional win against the Lions, showing that they can build forward for the future and improve on the offensive side of the ball. I did speak earlier that the Commanders and Patriots could be their only winning streak, but they have a 3-week gap right here, or a 3-week span where they play the Lions, Falcons, and the Jets. All three could be bottom 5 teams this year, so this is another chance for them to get another winning streak. They play the Falcons. Ritter is in at this point, I do believe, and regardless of what he does, the Falcons defense may be the worst in the league. Justin Fields, David Montgomery, I don't care who's blocking for him. I could be out there blocking for him, and they're going to run all over this Atlanta defense. Another win back-to-back weeks. Week 12. This could be a toss-up game. This is a prove-it year for Zach Wilson. He has improved offensive weapons. Justin Fields may have the worst offensive weapons out of any second-year quarterback in the league. And I still think that Zach Wilson is the worst of the two quarterbacks. He makes too many mistakes. He doesn't process the game well. He had more interceptions than touchdowns. Couldn't even get a 300-yard game last year, where Mike White came in and did it in Game 1, broke the franchise record for passing yards. So I feel like Justin Fields is going in there to prove something against Zach Wilson, two second-year quarterbacks, and Justin Fields wins the matchup. So now they have a 3-game winning streak, looking great for the future. Try to get some more wins before the end of the season. Problem is, Week 13 they play the Packers. It's at home. It's Aaron Rodgers. I don't care what weapons he has. We've spoke about their defense. So they get the loss there. So going into the bye, things are looking good for the Bears. I have them at 6-7. Yeah, 6-7, winning 3 of their last 4 games going into the bye. Any Bears fan, if you tell them that they're going to be 6-7 going into the bye week, they will take that 10 out of 10 times. So then Week 15, they follow that up against the Eagles. The Eagles are possibly the sneaky team to win the division in the NFC East, at least I feel anyways. Jalen Hurts takes that year 3 leap. He has A.J. Brown. This offense is going to just take a step forward, and unfortunately the Bears cannot keep up with them. Week 16, it's the Bills, Super Bowl favorites. Don't need to discuss that any further. The Lions. While I think it's possible that the Bears sweep the Lions, I feel we need to play it safe and say that they split the series. Bears win one, Lions win one. Oops, sorry. So, I mean, that would be ideal. I mean, Bears fans are not going to complain about splitting season series against anyone this year. And then the Vikings. Unfortunately, the Bears are going to end the season on a losing streak. They play the Vikings. The Vikings are playing for a wild card position at this point. The Bears are playing for next year. Um, Unfortunately, they can't compete with the Vikings this year, but next year and years going forward, if they end the season this year 6-11 again, with the offense looking like it has improved, then I feel like they feel better. They moved off of some pieces from last year, and they're just trying to build for the future. So 6-11 next year, or this year, sorry, having their first round pick going in 2023, they can continue to build around this team. Not having as much of a dead cap hit from the Khalil Mack trade, they can bring in some free agents, help Justin Fields on the offensive side of the ball, and hope that these draft picks continue to hit like they have. So, I mean, 6-11 is my prediction. Hopefully, they continue to grow from that. But we'll see what happens. All right, top players in their position. Each episode, I tend to find the top players at their position, who can be top 5, who can be top 10. Top 5 players on this team. The only one that has a chance of being a top 5 player is Robert Quinn, being a top 5 linebacker. He's done it. He can do it again, I do believe. Top 10, Eddie Jackson. Sorry. Eddie Jackson can be a top 10 safety in this league on his good years. Robert Quinn, if he bounces back and continues to be great, he could be top 10. And David Montgomery, but that all depends on the offensive line and his health. He can definitely be a top 10 running back in this league, no doubt. Let's do MVP. Let's do MVP and most improved player possibilities on this team. MVP candidates, they don't have a chance with anyone on this team. Most improved, they better hope it's Justin Fields. Even without having weapons around him, he gets a coach who is competent and can bring out what's best for him, and he becomes the most improved player on this team, which would be promising for Bears fans and going into the future with this Bears team. Drop-off candidates. I mean, the team wasn't that great last year. They moved on from a lot of pieces, so it's hard to pick one. But if I had to choose one that could drop off, it could be Robert Quinn, just due solely to his age. The age finally catches up to him. He's been in the league a long time. See what he can do, but I don't expect him to drop off. But if I had to choose one, it would be Robert Quinn. So best and worst outcomes now. Best outcome: this offense comes out and is an average offense in the league. If they're an average offense in the league, that's the best outcome for this team. This defense being what they are, they could get around the 500 get around a 500 record, finish the season 8-9, 9-8, which would be great for the Bears. That would be the best outcome. Worst outcome is that this offense looks the same as it did last year, and they regress. They end up winning 4 games this year, and they don't know who their quarterback of the future is because they don't have weapons around Justin Fields to evaluate what he truly is going into the future. Either of those is not far from reality, so I wouldn't be surprised with either the best or worst or average outcome. But we'll see what happens. And that kind of goes along with the most intriguing thing for me for the Bears is, can Justin Fields overcome the lack of weapons? I spoke about it many times in this episode, and can Mooney become the true wide receiver one like they're trying to make him out to be? That's going to be intriguing to watch the whole year. Can this offensive line protect Justin Fields to improve this offense? And does this secondary show its youth? Or can they come out and continue to be great with 2 rookies starting from day one? So that's my Bears preview for this year. Hoping they improve. I hope I'm proved wrong with the 6-11 record. Hopefully they can get more around 500. That would be great for Bears fans. It's going to be intriguing to see what they can do on the offensive side of the ball. That's going to be the focal point for me this year. Matt Eberflus, I don't have a question about what he can come in and do with this defense, but I want to see what Luke Getsy can do with this offense. So that's the Bears. Working our way. We're going to have another NFC North team coming up next with the Lions. So we'll run through them. If you're liking the episodes, please hit that like button. Please hit the comment button. Tell me what you don't like, what you do like. I do want to hear what you don't like so I can improve upon it in the future. And please, if you feel like it, hit that subscribe button so we can continue to grow this channel and continue to put out the content that we're putting out now. And until then, catch you in the next one.